Hey guys, good Saturday morning to you. I'm about to get ready in just a little bit. Yeah, it seems like I'm a little tired just because I haven't had a wink of sleep. Why? Well, considering yesterday I did a 6:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. 4.5 hour schedule, and now I got to be back at work for a full 7.5 hour schedule, which goes from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The only bonus is I get to come home at 10:30, go back at 11:30, and I look at it as a double shift deal. Don't ask me why, I just do. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But you know what's funny about this, folks? It's the fact that it doesn't matter what kind of retail job you have. Even if you are working for the retail company that I consider the equivalent of WWE. Seeing as though, despite how you feel about them, the company is probably the most successful retail company physically around. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But yeah. But again, it doesn't matter what kind of retail job you have. The one thing I think any retail job has to do, whether it's a retail grocery job, or its main focus is groceries, or if it's a retail, just a straight out retailer job where it's mainly anything but food, or if it's the combination of the two, which is basically the supercenter or hypermarts, if you will. The one question I think anybody always asks is why can't a retailer company get their job schedules correct for their employees or associates? See, that is the big question right there. Why can't they do that? And I think I know why. You see, one of the myths that some people have always said that helps you get work, no matter where you are, is when you apply for a job, whether it's writing on an application, a physical application paper, or doing it mostly nowadays online, or even in store on their computers, one of the things that people will tell you about and give you advice on using to ensure that you'll get hired, and most times this does work, surprisingly, is if you put in open on the schedule part. Like your availability, like what hours can you work, what hours of the day, blah, blah, blah. Well, according to some people, the best way to do that is to go open all the way. Why? Because that way it shows the company that you are willing to work whenever they need you. And when the time is right, and you've had enough time in the company, let's say a year, like I'm getting to next month, then you could probably work it out to at least you can have certain days off when you need them. Now the advantage of an open schedule sometimes is, you'll probably end up well, it's not an advantage. It's sort of an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage sometimes of an open schedule is you might work at hours during the day. You might have hours that, depending on the day that you have the hours, you can have a whole day to yourself. My job sometimes will have people like me scheduled for 4 hours, but we won't have to come in to at least 8:30 at night and work till 12:30. That's a 4 hour shift, which means basically, let's say if we had the day off, we have the day before off, kind of get my good, like I had Thursday off, and I went yesterday on Friday. I went in at 6:30, not 8:30, but still close to it, 2 hours earlier, but still. But imagine you have that day before off, and then the next day you're scheduled to come in 8:30 to 12:30. You're practically getting 2 days off in effect. If you count just the daylight and everything being day, you're practically getting 2 days off. A day and a half, if you want to put it, but close to it. But it almost feels like that because let's say you have the energy and the strength to do so, you can get up early, do your normal routine, go out and do something. If you have a movie theater nearby, probably go see a movie. There you go. All done before you go right to work. And people do that. They do. But then but then again, even though that's an advantage, and sometimes you might even have a 4 hour schedule to where you'll come in, you'll open the store at certain hours. Like, we open the store. Like sometimes people like me have to be at work to help open around 5:30. You can end up having a 4 hour schedule towards 5:30 to 9:30, and that's it. Or you can have a 7 to 11 in the morning schedule. That's it. You just never know. You just never know. And that's an advantage because then you have the whole day to do whatever. If you have a family event coming up that day, hey, boom, there you go. But then again, there comes the disadvantages. The disadvantages of basically declaring yourself open to any kind of schedule they give you. The disadvantage is sometimes you have to have a schedule like what I have. Even though you might do 4.5 hours or 6 hours the day before in the evening, they'll need you to get back in there right in the morning. Why? Because they probably don't have enough people. Or they just want to be prepared. Especially now, since it's the playoff season of the NFL, they want to be ready. Like I said, they want to be ready. And again, no one can really blame them for that. I don't. And I don't think you guys should either. But still, it's kind of a disadvantage because sometimes what it's like is either you're driving home, you're walking, or you're riding your bike, or whatever, or you're getting a ride. Despite what kind of transportation you have getting home, the problem is you don't have that much time to rest. You don't have that much time to socialize, if at all. Or it's like coming in, saying, hi, I'm back, whatever, getting something to eat, and then saying, okay, good night. And that's it. It's hard to get to sleep sometimes. And this sometimes is why I joke about, but seriously, I think they should consider it, and this goes for any retail store, retail company that has these kind of hours for the employees or associates. Sometimes I joke around, but again, like I said, I think they should seriously think about this and consider it. That a retail store that does this should have an extra room. Something like a hotel room or something. Rent out have an extra area built to where it has a variety of maybe some beds there. Where the people that will have to come in maybe 8 hours, 6 hours later from being on the schedule they already had, at least they can go right to sleep there, and then they won't have to worry. They'll just have the clothes for the next day right then and there. You have your shower stalls and everything there, just like a locker room, a dorm, or whatever you want to call it. It works better. It works out better because then you don't have to worry if they're going to come in or not. But, that's just something people like me joke about. It's like, maybe they should, say, yeah, why don't they just, add an extra room, let us sleep in that. But I think stores should seriously consider that for future purposes. But again, that's the disadvantage sometimes because even though you'll get, like, let's say, most of the day to yourself before you go into work, the disadvantage is you have to come in the next day probably early. That's the only disadvantage. But then comes sort of an advantage, if not a disadvantage, no matter how you look at it. And that advantage slash disadvantage is how you're scheduled. Now, a lot of stores and companies, retail companies, all that, will give you your schedule weeks in advance. Basically, they'll give it to you about 2-3 weeks in advance. And that's not for this week, for your current work week, because you've already had that. Or the next week, because you currently have that already. basically it's to give you a heads up of where you're going to be in the next few weeks, kind of work things out. And sometimes, like I said, that works and it doesn't. For me, well, let's just put it this way. I wanted some extra time to do some vids, maybe catch up on my channel, maybe get some rest. Well, how about the fact that the last week of January, the last week of this month, I'm not even going to be working about 11 hours. And that's it. And that's a surprise. Not that I'm not appreciative of my job, I am. And I can understand maybe why they're doing this. But it's so weird. It really is. I mean, suddenly I'm going from having this many hours. Like, I think I'm doing like 31 this week and like 32 next week. So all of a sudden, the last week, it's like, you're just doing 11. It's like, where did this come from? But, again, maybe things will change. And that's another thing, too. Sometimes nowadays, companies will change your schedule even if it's finalized. And right now, I doubt this 11-hour schedule is going to stand. Because I guarantee you, people at my job are going to say, well, why does this person have this many less schedules? What's going on? It'll change. But again, the advantage and disadvantages of an open schedule, especially when you put it down on your application, again, depends on how you look at it. Sometimes you'll have a lot, sometimes if you have a 4-hour day, it's okay because, heck, you have either most of the day to yourself afterwards if you're doing a morning to afternoon or just morning. And sometimes you have it, in the evening where you have most of the day to yourself to take care of things and that's it. It's sort of an up and up, but those are the advantages and disadvantages. And sometimes your schedule, depending on when you get it and find out the days you work, sometimes, depending on how you look at it, is an advantage and a disadvantage. Financially, it might be a disadvantage if you got a lot less hours. So, but that's just my take on the advantage and disadvantages of open schedules at retail jobs. So, let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. I'm going to get ready for work in just a bit.